And here we go. Melanie, sorry I butchered your name. I don't know. I got confused when I was sending 2 or 3 emails at the same time. I apologize for butchering your name. Okay. We are on week 5. We got 3 more classes and this is over. Time flies. I told you in the beginning that it's only 8 classes. It's a very short term to work with. But as I can see, most of you are doing really well, working hard, and I really appreciate that. I only miss a couple of midterms, and I'm very pleased that all of you have been able to respond. Some of you have emailed me and asked me why the grade posted is different to the grade on Canvas. Canvas is based on 100 points. Since you earn a bonus point, I posted the grade that you earn on your midterm. The remaining points above your grade will be added to the final grade, whatever you have at the end. So whatever you get, we'll add that many more points. So that's the final grade that is going to be posted after finish adding any points that you have from your midterm. That's how it's going to work. It's designed to help everybody. If anybody has issues, that's the time to really keep up with it. What's going on? Quick question. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right, so Sergio is having issues. Because it's working. Okay. Let me let Charles in. Okay. So as I was saying, the grade on the midterm is reflective of what the grade on Canvas is reflective of your grade on your test. The remaining points or the bonus points are added at the end of the grade. So whatever grade you're gonna have, I'm gonna add whatever points you have. It will boost the standing on the class at the final grade. Homework 4, I'm still missing a few of yours, and the whole point of it is I want to see that you, one, pick a company, and 2, you're going to have a skeleton, a format for you to use for your final presentation. I've been pointing, as soon as I get them, I'm pointing out some issues, or not issues, but small items that I can see that will be a better presentation, in my opinion, of what's going on. I pose to you this question every single time. Who is your target audience? Well, in this class, it's going to be me and your peers. But I always said, always consider yourselves presenting to your team, presenting to your supervisor, your boss, the president of the company, a vendor, whoever. You have to make the report as easily to read as possible. Very intuitive, if you may. When I point to you the issue with the graphs, the charts, and the tables, most of us, if we don't pay attention, we insert the table or the chart onto the paper and whatever we think is going to fit. One, we must have that listed on our table of tables, table of charts or graphs. Why? Because as a reader, as a user, if I don't want to read your paper, I want to go straight to your charts and see what you're telling me, I may want to do that and reference all the information that I want in there. For example, when we're talking about financials, it's very common for the accountant in you, for the finance manager in you, to go look straight into basic points in there. This is not an actual accounting report, a financial status report, but I'm asking you for trading information, for charts regarding trades or financial statements, things of that nature. So if you think about from the point of view of the reader, I go back directly to that chart. I can go back and say, okay, I like what I see. If I'm interested, if it piques my interest, I can continue reading. Or I can start from the beginning reading the whole document. So when I find a chart, a graph, a table on a page, I want to know where in that page is that item referenced. So when you start reading, you say, okay, table one below denotes the information on financial statements for the year 2020. I can automatically go to the table below and see that information in there. That helps the reader follow up. Yes, we want to gain their attention. So again, why do we want to do this? Because we're presenting to our boss, we're presenting to our team, we're presenting to a vendor or a potential customer. So we want to have the most advantageous position, presenting the best format of the information. I hope that's clear. The other thing I also mentioned to some of you, uh, yes, we are writing in an APA format. That's what I want you to write on, because for the rest of your student careers, if you haven't done it already, you have been writing in that format, or you should be writing in that format, because that's the standard that the university wants to follow. However, in a technical application like this, a technical business type of format, you don't follow exact format for APA. The exact format for APA on a document that you write can be very difficult to read. For the person that doesn't know anything out there on the street, when the first statement that they read on your document is an abstract, they do not know what an abstract is. You know, you have been educated on it. You know because you've been doing it, you've been writing, you've been reading about it. Your boss, your coworkers, your customer or potential customer, an abstract. What are we looking at? So I suggested to some of you, change the title to introduction. Go describe what you want out of the company. Give me that information that way. So yes, you're following an APA format because you're formatting your pages, you're formatting your references, you are citing correctly your graphs, your charts, your documentation backing up where you find your information. You have a table of references at the end that the person can see that information. Unless the reader knows that he's reading APA versus MLA, he is not going to differentiate between references and any other format that you want to give him. All he's looking for is, he or she listed this information. I want to go back and research it. I want to go back and see. I'm interested on that document that she or he quoted in there. On the test, I ask you to give me two scholarly items regarding pollution, industrial pollution. I didn't put anybody wrong unless they didn't submit it. If you didn't submit it, you had a little red line, which means it's a zero because that part couldn't be counted. But nobody got taken out of it. What I'm trying to get to you is, when we say scholarly is because you are seeking information that is easily verifiable, that is usually professionally written, and is able to have the relevant data or the relevant documentation that you need for whatever you're doing. On the test, didn't mean anything but you finding information on a topic. On your documentation, you are providing scholarly, which means it's very well written, it's properly vetted, it's properly resourced, it's properly created for anybody to use. And it usually is applicable to the subject matter that you're working with. So those are the items that please keep in mind when you're working with it and when you're trying to build your document. Now, you're going to notice that there are no more assignments from this point on. The syllabus is designed on purpose that way because from this point on, every time we have something covered in class, I want you to think on your project. Tonight, we're going to cover ERP systems. Last week, we covered Porter's uh, 5 methodologies. You should be incorporating that information already onto your project. As the week goes, as we do a presentation in here, you should pick up that documentation and says, okay, how does this reflect in my company, the one I'm working with? And you build your information. Somebody asked me, how many pages should I write? I don't care how many you write. It's no less than 5, not including your title, your table of contents and your references. So go to town with it if you have to, if you want to. I don't want you to skimp on it. Hey, it's an assignment. I got to do it real quick and give me 3 pages worth of document. No, that doesn't make any sense to me because all it means is that you didn't do real honest work for yourselves regarding the documentation that you're looking for when you're creating the project. Yes, you can still submit your rough drafts. Somebody's asking that on the chat. Yes, you can still submit your rough drafts. Nobody's getting penalized for not submitting them. I want you to submit them. Furthermore, if you have homework that you have not submitted yet, that you couldn't submit it, that you have a problem with it, let me know. I can send you the link directly and we continue working with them. You will have them. That way you can still work with all your assignments and have everything completed. My interest is not to cut anybody off. My interest is make sure that you did what it was asked of you because everything has a reason to be done this way. It's all building towards this project. So after every class, please consider the time that you're going to use, consider the chapters that we're looking at, and complete that part of your project. Your project is now organized with the document that you gave me for the homework as to how you're going to lay out your project. That's the whole basis of doing that. You laid out your project, now you're going to start filling the blanks in there, adding your charts, adding your graphs, creating your own graphs, your own charts, whatever you want to do, as long as you start building on it. If you wait for the last weekend to do this, you will not have time to finish because you also have to finish a PowerPoint presentation. Now, that being said, you already have everything you need for your PowerPoint presentation. You have a title page and you have a reference page, the first and the last slide of your presentation. What are you going to present to us in between is hit the main topics of the presentation. Porter's 5 points, uh, enterprise results systems, ISOs, all this information that is asked of you. That way your PowerPoint is already feeding from the document and you're ready to walk. Whenever you're presenting already information that you already know because you created it and you move forward with it. On the last day, the day of the last class on week 8, we will present starting at 6 o'clock. Each one of you will share the screen with me. You will present to the whole class. You will have sent me the PowerPoint and the document. I will share the PowerPoint to the class. You present you do your presentation. We move on to the next person. We have 2 hours to do this. Hopefully we don't go beyond that. Usually we don't. So we'll be able to do it because if everybody takes 5-10 minutes tops, we'll be able to do it. Uh, Again, start planning now. You only have 3 classes to go for this to be completed. Anybody has any questions, please drop me a message. I'm answering as fast as I can to all of you, and I'm keeping track of all the information. If you are missing something, make sure to double check with me on it and keep a record of what you send me. I got an issue right now. A person said they send me something. Canvas doesn't show anything being received. I cannot do anything about it unless you have a copy of what you send me. That way I can go back and review and regrade. That was something else that I have not expected, but it happened. And like every brand new system that we're working with is going to be present anytime we do any kind of work. You saw it last week when we have to, on the fly, revamp ourselves to be able to put the midterm information out because Microsoft decided that the cloud was not available at the time from the university. So I have to go back and repost the exam on a Word document. Well, we adapt, we move on, we overcome it, we got it done. All right, so enough of this uh, maintenance stuff. Now we can get into the items at hand that we need to do now. Again, questions, concerns, email me, text me, make sure you give me your name. Uh, that's the fastest way to get a hold of me and we can get everything working. Remember, I'm still working with you in all your missing assignments. The only thing I cannot reopen is the discussions. Discussions cannot be reopened if we are a day before the classes start. There is no way to get anything concrete out of that. I need for you to participate with the discussion of others. So it's important that everybody takes time to do it. I know everybody is busy. I know more than anybody that you guys are paying a heavy price for these classes because you got lives, you work, you have families, and on top of it, you got a class. Hey, you sign up for it. Let's move on with it. Okay, chapter 8, business processes. We've been talking all along to concept of the items that we use in businesses, what we use in the company to maintain information, to collect information. We define data, we define a datum, we define knowledge, we define all these processes that are applicable. We define processes that were available for databases. Now we're stepping into a bigger picture, a whole company. Well, all these processes, all these methodologies, all this thinking that we have are going to come into place now because now we're going to put everything to work on a company-wide spectrum. So we heard what is a business process? What is it that we do to make a business process? Anything that we do that is part to achieve a goal is a process. On a business, anything that we do to lower cost, increase profit, maintain competitive advantage means a process. So again, if you think about it that way, whenever we're working on definitions of this nature, you need to be thinking from the point of view of the business. You need to be thinking from the point of view of management information systems. So anything that we do, anything that has a goal that we can achieve in a unique way or different ways, that is considered a process for the company. When that unique way can set the company apart, it's a process that will enable us to maintain or gain competitive advantage. We keep repeating the same thing from class 2. Competitive advantage, gaining competitive advantage. What is the purpose of our existence as a company? Gain competitive advantage, increase profits, reduce cost, lower prices. That's why processes are being built. That's why we work with processes as a business application, a business part. So when we do a process, we have to consider documenting the process. One of the biggest problems in industries is when, and you've probably seen this yourselves firsthand, is when the companies have a few people that have all the knowledge. They have been there the longest, or they're the seniors of the department, or they have the most experience because they came from other places doing this. When you have people that are like this, they have an incredible amount of knowledge. It's a trove of information. But if it hasn't been documented, the minute that person departs, leaves, quits, changes, you are about to lose that efficiency that you have maintained on a process. You can no longer have that ability because something is going to be missed. So it's very essential for the business to document the processes because in essence, you're assuring yourselves as a business control of how all these activities are taking place on the company. Think about that. It's very important that you look at it that way. If you don't document what you have, how are you going to know? How is somebody's going to know how to do something? And there are tasks that are simple enough that a simple detail will not allow you to work, will not allow you to perform the process that you want, will not allow to retain everything that you need. The process can be thought as something that is so simple as creating something. I described to you initially, if you were to sit down and create a program outlining every step of your routine in the morning, from the minute you open your eyes until the minute you leave your house to work, what do you do? For some people, you have 3 steps, 5 steps, 15 steps, 20 steps, however many you have. But they have to be documented because if I'm going to write a program called Hello World, that program has to determine what is in there to make it Hello World. What is so nice about hello? Well, I got up, I took a shower, I brushed my teeth, I have coffee, I ate breakfast. Oops, I forgot to let the puppies out. Oh, I forgot to put the dogs in. Oh, the cat is still out. Worse yet, I didn't turn the stove off. Stuff like this that are small items that if we don't document it, the next person in line will not know what to do with them. That's why you need to consider the documentation as something that is very important for anything that you're doing for a business. When we manage that documentation, when we process the information that we have, we create different formats of managing that information. Some of them are as simple as version and timestamps. You probably seen this when you look at software and it tells you, or print out a software and it tells you timestamp. When was the document created? When was the document viewed? When was the document printed? Who created it? So on and so forth. Well, this is a sample of management of one part of documentation within the system itself. Most of the time, it's a backend system that does that. Approval and workflow. You want to do something that enables you to see information and to allows you to document how you make a decision, how you go from point A to point B. That's usually that route that you take is a workflow. You document this because those are processes that are back end processes and front end processes. If you ever go to a store and you apply for a credit card, they ask you, did you want to apply for a credit card? All I ask you is 3 questions. Well, the process for the person asking you this, what is your name? What is your address? And one last question, can I see your driver license and get your driver license number? Internally, that company has a process to get some kind of approval for you on a credit card based on 3 sets of information. The back end goes beyond that because that workflow says, okay, you got to pick up information, personal information, identification information. Then we got to go check credit bureaus, and then we got to go uh, hit databases that tells us this person is credit worthiness, so on and so forth, until we get to the end where it's approve or disapprove. So you have a system in place that is documenting and managing how things move. Communication. You and I are talking to each other, or at least I'm talking and you're watching me or hearing me, or you go back and see and hear what I said. It's a form of communication. One way, 2 ways. As simple as an email that you write at the office. You are using a company account. You write the email. Most of you, most of us, have specific ways that we should address our emails. Many companies ask you, make sure you create a signature. So you have to create a signature page or a signature bottom that shows all your basic information, and they tell you what to put in there. Always address people in a certain way. Never use personal information. Never use the email for personal information. You are creating communication. You have guidelines and documentation that tells you what to do. When we send the email, we create a chain. We create a route and we create a flow of information that is documented. Who we went to, who came from with it, who is viewing it, who is deleting, who's accessing, so on and so forth. Again, back end and front end for the system, workflows that detail that information. So when all this document managing takes place and all these processes are taking place, the companies, our groups, our locations need a way to start managing a lot of this information, whether it is for purchasing, for human resources, for services, for inventory, so on and so forth. So then we step into a different realm, a much bigger realm. We start looking about ERP systems or enterprise resource planning systems, which is basically software with a centralized database. One database that handles everything. As you can see here in the graph that I'm showing in here, that I'm sharing with you, this enterprise module has other modules attached to it. So this database is running information from production, from inventory, from services, human resources, material requirement planning or MRPs, purchasing, CRM or customer relationship management, sales, financials. Within each one of those sections, you have databases. So it's a centralized database. It can run a whole company and is running multiple databases. During the previous classes, I mentioned to you a DBMS, a database management system. Well, a database management system, all it is another piece of software like a database that enables you to manage information created, moving, and storing and working with databases. Basically, an ERP is very close to behaving like a DBMS, but it's more powerful, more robust, it's stronger because it enables you to interact with different databases that are being used across the whole company. The ERP by itself can run the whole company. If you go back and look at your own companies, you probably have already in place something like this. It may not be called ERP, but it's something that you can feel, you can see is connecting to everybody. It's alike and it runs everything for you in the company. So again, we're talking about a centralized database system. And some of the best known ERPs that you're going to find in the markets today as SAP, which by design has its own type of ERPs on it. Microsoft, which has different databases or ERP systems on it. Oracle, which is also a very common system in place. And open source ERPs. I mentioned to you before the issue with open source programs. It is important to know about this, that there is such a thing as open source ERPs, because your company may be a small company. It may be you and your partner, and you're running the company and you're running everything out of it with your other managers and everything, but it's only two of you running the company. You don't have $300,000, $500,000 to go get a big application system, nor you have the size of a company to do it. So you go look into an open source, something that you can customize to what you're doing. The only thing that you have to worry about with open source, or one of the things that you have to worry about it is, as open source, it may not be as easy to apply and understand, but like anything else, people are there to help out. However, you pay somebody like SAP or Microsoft or Oracle to come in and set up an enterprise system for you. Part of the program that you're going to pay for is maintenance. They come back and help you. Part of the program that you're going to have is initial setup. So they come back and review your company and you give them your data and so on and so forth, and they get you running. The whole point is the enterprise resource program as a centralized database enables you to run the whole company. Even if different sections of the company have their own databases, they will all interlink and be able to be used. Sergio is asking us, will it be secure as a database for open source? Yes. Most of the time, the fact that it's open source doesn't mean that it's insecure. It will be secure, but That being said, that puts it on you, the owner of the company, to make sure that the systems that you put in place and the training that you put in place keep it secure. They are going to give you the basics to get going, but they're going to tell you this is what we have and this is what we support. Beyond that, it's up to you to maintain security and maintain the options with everything in there available to maintain the security of your system. Point in case, if you have a database system that is open source, you got to customize, you even customize it yourself because you were able to do it with the open source format and all this good stuff. Remember, if you have that and you have an email system that is not secure, you immediately become a target because your email system now is going to allow things to come in. 9 out of 10 times, you are going to have somebody interfacing into the application with it. What will these databases that are open source stop? Heavens only know what is available out there. Will they be more secure than an Oracle or a Microsoft or a SAP? I will ask you the same thing if you're the owner of that pipeline company or you're the owner of that meat company that just got hacked for ransomware. They are probably running these systems. If they're going to get to you, they're going to get to you. You have to do your due diligence to make sure that you have the security and the training in place so your people and your staff and everybody that interacts with the system is not make it available to anybody. You bring the question, then how am I going to do business? Well, one of the things that happens with these centralized databases is that the database per se is not accessible to anyone but people in the company. So, for example, your HR manager, he or she does the hiring of staff through the HR manager portion of the application. When they interface with applicants out there, they're usually using systems with firewalls that prevent any kind of access so they can actually filter information from coming in before it actually reaches the database. So you never importing brand new information onto the database that hasn't been vetted. However, if your engineering department decides to share their access information to a contractor that is making plans for them, a CAD program or a any kind of program that the engineers are using it, for example, and the engineer's system is vulnerable against hack, guess what? You violated your first rule of security. You open your system, it's no good. And I don't care what you put in there, open source or non-open source, you created a problem for yourself. So in answer to the question, Sergio, will it be secure? Yes. Will it be insecure? Very possible, because you always will have to depend on your staff, on your people to make sure that they can get actually working for you and doing everything correctly. There is always something that's going to happen. So I cannot tell you that it's not going to happen, but for the most part, it's secure. The best example that I can give you with open source, there are very, very few viruses for Linux in comparison for Microsoft operating systems or even Apple systems. I will even go even with Android systems. They're all vulnerable because of the way they have been designed. They're leaving things behind, they're opening things, they don't close things. Linux so far is the only open source that has beaten the record on these companies to maintain security. Yes, you're gonna find people that have been hacked. If you go back and figure out why, it's because they opened the system somewhere, somehow, to third parties that are not secure. It's as simple as, can you connect to something that cannot be verified on the certificate? If you take a chance like that, or if you hit a site that you find troublesome, you're exposing your connection, you're exposing your connectivity. You are bound to get into troubles with everything that you're doing. So it can run an entire company. The ERP centralizing all the data for the organization, but individual processes of the organization are maintained by the individual departments. All you're doing is maintaining a centralized repository of everything that enables you to manage information faster and better for everything you're doing. The whole thing is to help you out. The bigger you're getting, the more processes in place, the more help are you going to need to achieve that independence of each individual department, and at the same time that accountability of each individual department. Okay, business process management, BMP. It's been said that the business process management is basically creating structures to manage processes. It's an effort to plan, document, implement, and distribute uh, an organization business process. So, business process management is managing the process. One of the best things it has is that empowers the employee to maintain that control and to enforce that control. It has built-in reporting, so you don't have to create brand new processes from the beginning to report on the process that you're trying to work with. It enforces best practices. If you have a process in place, don't circumvent the process to get to the same position that you were before. This management system forces you to enforce what you have until you come up with a better system or a more efficient way to apply that information. So everything is enforced the same way. That's what it's calling enforcing consistency, because it's simple to use, and at the same time you maintain the same set of information at the same time. The idea behind of empowering the employee is that when you have an organization support system put in place, the business processes are maintained and designed correctly, so your employee, your staff, will be able to run more efficiently. It will have a better policy management for you on the company and this on the staff, of course. And the simplest way to analyze this, and you probably everybody's seen it, when you go to a retail store to return items, does the employee has the capacity to accept the return, or does he or she have to call the vice president of the company to get a signature to approve, come down to the floor, enter their key, and type their keys on the computer in order for that employee to accept a return? Or you just go in and says, I want to return this. And then you're going to follow a workflow process that you're going to be asked. Thank you very much. We will be glad to accept it. Do you have your receipt? Yes, no. Based on your answers, a process will follow. Well, this process management system is enforcing you to ask you for that information. So if you as the employee have the decision capacity to go say, yes, I will take the return, I will do it following the following steps. Do you have a receipt? Yes. Great. Let me see it. Scan. Period. Done. Great. No problem. Do you want cash or you want the debit card? A debit card. Sorry, I cannot give you cash. This was charged on a credit card. I can refund it to the credit card. Well, I cannot take it like that. I need to take some kind of cash. Well, the process that we have in place in the business is we will give you a gift card with the amount of the refund if it's a large amount. Or here's the credit, go use it anywhere in the store that you want to use it. The process in place enabled the person that was handling the task to make decisions on their own and to respond to the task on hand. Was handling the customer, was handling the return, was able to act on it without going through a process that otherwise will make the customer wait. From the point of view of the company, you are improving efficiency because that employee now can take less time working with the same customer, now can work with somebody else. The employee can assess immediately whether that item can be returned to the shelves or it can be has to be put back because it's defective, or what do we need to do with it, which is another process that is in place. And there's does come the built-in reporting. That employee says on the report, item returned because it's defective. See, item itself cannot lock bolts in place. There is no thread on hold to put the bolt. Or the thread hole doesn't match the hole for reception of the thread. Oh, it's a real defective item. The company now has an option to go back and said, okay, guys, you sold me this product. It cannot be sold this way anymore. We will no longer do business. You are giving me shoddy material. What is it doing? Enforcing best practices. So the business process management is forcing you to maintain a set of statuses to say decision making process in place. A person can make it. No, we have to wait for somebody to get approval. We have a report in place because now we can determine whether that item is good or not. And once we know it's not good, now we can have a report made to the company, and we are now enforcing best practices. We will only accept good material, and our staff has the best practice in place of double checking and reporting immediately. Proper training will get you there. Proper training allows you to do things like that. Enforcing consistency, of course, because now cashier A, cashier B, and cashier C are aware to what cashier D did. Especially if you call a meeting afterwards and say, guys, we have an issue. This is the problem. It was found by this person, and she was able or he was able to troubleshoot it. And yes, we have a problem. So be aware we may have issues on items coming back. Consistency is put in place. You got procedures in place now for returns of the same widget. You notify your staff. Consistency again. You're making them aware of what's going on. You're enforcing the best practice. You have reports, and you're empowering your people to make decisions. Or not. If the person is brand new, perhaps you don't want him to make a decision. Perhaps that person has to stop and ask a peer or a supervisor before making decisions. Eventually, the goal that you have is to everybody to have that capacity to be able to go back and make decisions. The next step is when the process that we have can be re-engineered. What do we mean by re-engineer? We're recreating the process in a better way, the same way, Where are we copying the information from our competition because we managed to see their process and everything they're doing? Well, when we're talking about business process reengineering or BRPs, we're talking about outcomes, not the task. We are trying to design workflows and mechanisms and different organizational structures within the company to uh, change processes that will give you a better outcome. We improve efficiency, we improve production, we reduce cost. So I want you to think not in the terms of a company taking your product and going back and copying it by rebuilding it from scratch and see how it works and then go up back and produce it as their own. That's not what we're saying. This re-engineering process system is you take something and said, okay, this is how it's done. Now we need to go back and make changes to it. That workflow that we have has to change. We no longer should go and buy this type of can for production because the metal that is being made is too brittle. We're wasting too much money on shrinkage because of damaged goods versus this other product. Well, what does that mean? The process is how are we loading material? How are we buying the material? How are we storing the material? Warehousing that material? You are reorganizing the outcome, not the task. You are not reorganizing how to load into the conveyor belt. You are reorganizing that you want a better product to come out because you identify that the problem is the type of material, the type of goods that you're buying. Very important. Have those who use the outcomes of the process perform the process. Think about it. Who is doing, who is using this outcome? Who is taking the production line forward? Who is doing the loan forward? Is the outcome to make the whole process faster? Is the outcome to have the most sales? If you just give it to them because somebody created it, they will not know what actually is happening in there. You may give that to the loan officer and find out this doesn't work. Why? Is it but because what we're asking customers in Texas is different to what we ask in North Carolina? We cannot ask the same thing. So the process has to change. So we are not changing the product. We are changing the outcome of that product because the process that we did have to be reworked. So when you allow the loan officer to work that loan package, he or she will be able to determine, is this process going to work? Is this going to achieve what that I want? Yes? No? Who knows? When you give the software application to your staff to do inventory, do they have any input on the application itself? Because the application says, point scanner to this location, click twice, point the scanner to this other location, scan once. And that scans a product onto the inventory. So you start looking about it and somebody comes back and said, Joseph says, but boss, you're asking me to spend the next 15 seconds scanning an item 3 different ways before it actually goes into the inventory. What about if we had the inventory pre-formatted, we find the item that we want, we scan it, and the barcode read can be found directly on the database and added to the inventory. We are changing the way we do inventories because we re-engineer the database. Is the outcome change? Yes, we have a inventory that is going to be complete. Did the task change? Right. Sergio brings up another good point. COVID-19 did a lot of organizations to start doing their BRPs. And that is true. A lot of people have to re-engineer how we do business. All of us did because now is different. Now we have to think about it. And we're coming out of it. But who knows if a year from now, heaven forbids that this happen again. If it happens again, you think we're going to be unprepared anymore? No. Now we can react faster to everything and start accommodating to things like that. From the point of view of education, which is the field that I worked in, we were able to gear overnight. But then we find out that gearing overnight was a stopping point because we didn't have enough resources out there for low income. The low income family did not have computers, did not have access points, did not have Wi-Fi, did not have all this stuff. The process was in place. Go to this website, get your homework, do it for the student that is going to be online. So how do we change this outcome? By changing the process. We change the outcome by changing how we organize ourselves and how we put in place options for the people to work with. We set up hotspots throughout the city. We set up hotspots, multiple hotspots in the parking lots of the campuses. If the people did not have access to, they could go into a location where there were buses parked with hotspots. If you didn't have internet connection because you didn't have equipment, we gave the students equipment. So we re-engineered delivering the lesson by providing a type of access to people, try to reach as many people as we could. Of course, once we do things like this, we're finding out that there are many more problems. But again, the process of delivering a lesson got re-engineered from the classroom to online to the individual itself. Who performed the processes? We did. Not only we have to test the lessons to make sure they work, we have to test the systems, make sure they work. Did we drive to parking lots? Did we go back and set up on campuses? Did we go back and check the equipment? Did the equipment hold a charge? Did the equipment has to be charged? Was the equipment secure enough? These are the kind of things that affect the process and the outcomes. Geographically dispersed resources should be centralized. This applies when your business is centralized in one area. The further apart you are, the more difficult it's going to be to re-engineer something because now you have geography putting a kink on everything that you do. Now you have something that is slowing you down. I go back to the school district issue. When we issue hotspots, computers on and so forth to students, we have 56 different campuses. 56 different campuses scattered through an area over 350,000 people, Corpus Christi. San Antonio is twice, three times as big as ours. Some of the school districts in San Antonio have three times the number of students we have in Corpus Christi. Geographically, we have to go and disperse access to information So when we re-engineer an issue to try to resolve a problem, we have to contend with geography to how are we going to provide access to people. That's when it was brought to us the issue of let's go park a bus with a hotspot in parking lots across the city. So people have access that way. We know the range of the hotspot. We know the range of the Wi-Fi at school. We know we could park a bus in the parking lot of a major high school that is right beside a middle school or an elementary school. All of them have Wi-Fi available. We increase the space and capacity of people to access the same information. So we went back and changed from saying download this or access the internet by doing this and re-engineer the process by going back and saying this is how we're going to have to provide access. So the end game is every student can access the lesson. Every student can have the option to be online while they're at home, making sure nobody gets sick. The next item, put the decision points where the work is performed and build control points in the process. That is so true because if the work is performed, for example, I go back to the grocery store or to the retail store. If the work is performed at a specific location, but the person to make decisions, to make changes, have to go to a different area of the building or a different location in the city to make the decision point, we are defeating the purpose of the reengineering process. Build control points into the process. As you move forward in re-engineering the process and to creating the workflows that you need, then allow the people to see and to perform the duties that they need so they can make decisions. They may be gradual, but they may be making decisions that help the system move forward until the point that the whole re-engineering process is taking place and you have achieved the goal that you took in charge. If that clerk has to go back and check with the manager in a different part of the city to make a return, is defeating the purpose. But if the clerk has a supervisor on the floor rubbing around, that supervisor can come in and say yes, put the key and check and move on. Better yet, empower that person that you trust to make the decision and they can move forward and make those changes as they go. So when you build that control point into the process, you don't wait to call somebody. That person already has the ultimate decision. They can control the flow. The workflow is taking place, and then you can make the ultimate customer experience. They have a return, you took the return, you move on, you give them a credit, they go back and continue shopping. That's what you want. Lower the cost of your goods, increase your profit. Who knows? It may come out with a bigger product than they came in. They may come up with, I didn't find anything. At least you didn't lose money. You gave them a credit. Your inventory is back. Okay, we deal with it. Now we got to deal with a different point. Why did it come back? Well, it's defective. So now we have to report it. Now we have to go back to that vendor and said, why am I getting bad material in here? Enforce the consistency. That material has to be inspected by quality control at the shipping point before I get it in here. I don't have the manpower, the warehousing, nor the time to sit down and inspect each item that I have in here for capacity to work. I have to be able to have it ready to go by you. This is a very important point, the next one. Capture information once at the source. How many times have you seen that you're performing a task and you handle the same set of information 4 and 5 times? How many times are you working with set of information that you actually have to allow you or yourself to key information over and over the same item. Every time that item is handled, the propensity for errors begin to increase. Every time a third party is touching the same item that you just handled, you increase the propensity for the error. They bring it up to the point at the source. If the person at the source, in this case, the clerk, makes the decision, returns the money, scan the document, scan the part, create the report immediately is no good. Automatically goes to a different location where it's going to be handled and it's not going to be any more uh, into the store by you or by anybody that has to deal with it. It's done, it's resolved. Again, the last item in here. Process got a bad rap because of abuse. It was used as a tool to lay off people. You heard this before from companies that said that they are restructuring themselves. When the process of reengineering was not designed to do that. The process of reengineering was designed for you to improve your processes, your workflows, to achieve profit and to minimize cost. Well, companies saw it as a tool to, we're going to re-engineer the whole department, lay off half of the staff, one half will take double the shift. We got profit now. That comes from the mindset of uh, finance and economics that you will find out if you already know it. The most expensive part of your business is your labor. The most important part of your business is your people. So this is a predicament. You need to support them, and yet they're costing you money. But I give you a typical example. If your process in place is not well defined, if your company is not well staffed, if you're cutting corners, a person that you hire to do a specific job and you paying them $15 an hour, then you have somebody that all he or she is going to do is work on sorting boxes. It's physical labor. It's not different than many low entry jobs. You're going to pay him $10 an hour. But somebody in their infinite wisdom decided to come back and say, you that I'm paying you $15 an hour are having too much downtime. Go help on the boxes. Go take a shift handling the boxes, the sorting of boxes. Now you have somebody that is, by your design, paying $15 an hour, working on the job, making sorting of boxes for somebody that you pay $10 an hour. Is that cost effective? No. Because if you figure that person now is making X per box, now it's going to cost you more because you have a $15 per hour person handling the same job doing boxes. You say, well, he's much more faster. He's much more efficient. Probably so, but that's not his job. The process that you design, the workflow that you design for that job requires a $10 an hour job, not a $15 an hour job. So dollar per case sort went up. Productivity probably went up. But now your profit is lower because you're paying more for that box than you did before. Because you observe that the same process that you create, the same workflow that you create at $15 an hour did not have enough work. You reassign he or she to do another job that pays $10 an hour. In your mind, you keeping him busy. In the mind of the company finances, you're paying too much money now. And this is just an example. But going back and re-engineering the process of the $15 an hour employee will be more cost efficient than re-engineering his job by going to the task itself of reassigning him to sort boxes for the $10 an hour employee. Worse yet, you laid off the $10 an hour employee because now you have a $15 an hour employee making more money, handling two jobs, but he can give you more productivity. Actually, you didn't do yourself any good. Now you have a bigger problem. Cost wise, productivity wise, and profit wise, your reengineering process has failed. You tackle the task, not the process. That's what we're talking about. Laying off people because you misinterpret the process, the reengineering process did not resolve the problem. It creates more problems for you. But always keep in mind, as business owners, as business managers, as CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, your most expensive part of the company is not the raw materials, it's not the computers, it's your staff. So you have to be very conscious of that when you engineer a process or when you create a process. Take the time to sit down and design the proper procedure, the proper pay, the proper item for that site, for that job that you have created. Otherwise, you are spinning your wheels. All right. ISOs, International Standards Organization. For all of you who work for the federal government, probably know this a lot. It's used a lot, and a lot of companies today use it. A lot of companies do not use it. It's just that it's a standard. It's a standard to try to bring a type of format to production and to services across organizations. When it was created under the concept that a company can be audited in the United States or in China or the United Kingdom. And if they have the same ISO, the same company's standards can be the same and can be audited and can be worked on. And when you sign up with the ISO, you agree to maintain that certification and you to agree to maintain those standards. The ISO is based on three questions. This is purely simplistic because it's a lot more than that, but it's basically you answer three questions. What do you do? Show me where it says that. And provide documentation that this is what happened. So remember when we talked in the beginning about business process management, imaging, maintaining records on your information. Now this is coming to you because your company is being asked to join a consortium and they tell you, okay, we're glad to have you here. However, one of the requirements of the job of the companies is that we have to be ISO certified. Being ISO certified means what? What do you do? I build widgets. Where does it say that? My company manual. my articles of incorporation, my employee handbook, my safety handbook, says everything that I do. How can you tell me that this is actually happening? Okay. Every year, every employee is asked to sign up and provide signature that they have been given and read the employee handbook. Every year, each employee that works on the plant is given a safety briefing for 2 weeks, seminars on safety, and they are asked to sign that they have read and abide by all the rules and regulations of the safety manual. They have to take 32 videos on safety, and they have to prove certificates that they have completed all 32 videos. I have 5,000 employees. I got 5,000 records for every employee. Okay. So based on the kind of system that you use and that you are, and the type of service that you have or product that you have, we will issue the following ISO. ISO starts at 900, but they change depending on industries. That is why on your report, I ask you, find out which one is your ISO. Most international companies have it. Sometimes it takes some digging. Most of the time, they tell you in the About Us when you research the company. Sometimes you can go to the ISO website directly and search in there if a company has an ISO. And you're going to find out that a company has multiple ISOs. A company, for example, if I remember correctly, Amazon, will have multiple ISOs because they sell products, they produce products. You say, what do they sell? Well, they sell access to internet, they produce databases, they produce cloud systems, and they resell that. They provide storage and they charge fees. Each one of the items that they have carry different certifications. Sometimes they do it by shop. This shop, all it does is produce this type of widget. All this shop does is buy this type of widgets. We're in charge of finance items only. So go back and research what the ISO for your company is. You're gonna come back and tell me my company doesn't have an ISO. And it's very likely that it doesn't have an ISO. Not everybody follows these ISOs. Why do you need to know this? Because when you are talking to a company, when you are talking to a manager, when you are talking to a program manager, to a project manager, you will need to know if the product will involve a company that has an ISO or not. Why? Because many processes and tasks that you follow are going to be done under the guidance and work of the ISO. Because remember, when they are audited, they are audited across the board and they usually follow what somebody else is doing somewhere else. So that way they're equivalent in the audits that they do to maintain standards. So we separate the companies from each other. We maintain them together by type of ISO, but at the same time, each company can stand on its own by the way they are creating the ISO and creating their own processes and certifying themselves for this uh, type of certification that they maintain. So look into it and go with that. The people of information systems. We know, because I just told you, that people is very expensive. You also know that people is the most important part of the conversation. Many of you told me on your final and your midterms in the same terms, without people, the job cannot get done. Without people, the jobs cannot be completed. So now you told me the most important part of the organization. All of them are valid answers to the same question. People is your most important part, and it's also the more expensive part. So in information systems, which is our topic, management information systems, you have the creator of the information system, you have the information system operator, which are two different career paths. For the creator of the information systems, the first item that you always encounter is your analyst, the systems analyst. And the thing is, nowadays, systems analysts have become equivalent to almost anybody that just go in there and I work for this company and I work under this type of product or this type of data, and that's what we do. It takes a little bit more than just being the system analyst like that. You identify needs, you translate and you help the needs or requirements into information systems designs. Thus, the title of Creator of Information Systems. Once it's created, the solution is created, the analyst will detail and document describing the new application. We just got through talking about business processes, business process management, documentation. This is what the analyst is doing. A process was created, a process was fine, the analyst is detailing it, is providing information to the design, and is documenting. The actual development of any information system that you do is usually done by the programmer. They're the ones who actually sit down and say, point A to point B to point C, if then else, otherwise print, otherwise shut down, whatever. That's what your programmer is doing, putting the steps together. He gets from you, the analyst, the big picture, detailed information, and he begins actually developing information. When you create the systems off the shelf, that means it's like going to a supermarket or when you go to an old computer store or you go online and you buy off the shelf the package. And then once you get the package, you say, okay, I like this. Now I can make something with this that will allow me to create a better understanding to what I'm doing. This is the typical example with with a suite like Microsoft Office or Open Office or any of these multiple applications. Why? Because you buy it off the shelf and now you're using the analytic capacity of these tools to create something that somebody else can make decisions with. You mine data, you put data together, you can build applications around the data so somebody else can read it and work with it. So you, in essence, created an from the off-the-shelf system, you created a system that allows you to work with other information, which is the system integrator, i.e. your Microsoft Access, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. All three come together to provide a set of information that gets you to do the same thing. And ERP is doing the same thing for you, although to a bigger level. As a manager, owner of the company, CIO, CFO, you're using the ERP tools to connect with your Microsoft Office suite or your SQL report writer or your SQL query system to create information off the shelf because you're buying these app packages to to look at this information, mine it, and make information for you that you can get applications to work for you and help you make decisions. Then you have the programmer and you have the computer engineer. The computer programmer nowadays is something that is moving so fast because computer programmers used to be you write code line by line and you have to define a whole system, and you have programs that were specifically designed for that, for business or for mathematics or for different things. With the advent of technology, the creation of the PCs, the advent of new operating systems, the advent of the graphical user interface, the GUI, programming has taken a better aspect to a visual approach. The programmer can now use tools that are a lot more friendly to work with than having to write code on languages that are difficult to follow or to understand. That's how the programmer has evolved. The computer engineer used to be that man with the white coat, a bunch of pen in his pockets that you could only see through a little door in a building, handling all the tape decks and all the printers and everything there was, because all we had was these big machines that were the computer mainframes. Computer engineers nowadays are more common of different situations or different they're like a cross analyst, cross programmer that can get be very much involved from the back end. They are designing, maintaining all the systems that we use every day. These are this where you have your hardware engineer, somebody that comes and design a printer or design a scanner or design different applications for the hardware that you're using. Then you have the software engineer, somebody that builds the application. Then you have a systems engineer. Uh, the systems engineer puts everything that you have in the company, put it to work together. The main thing in here is that all these positions cross each other, and they are all part of multiple disciplines, and they all come together in one, especially in today's environment where networks control most of our applications, where cloud is everything that we do. This is a breakdown from the book, and it's from 2020 US Labor and Statistics. Of course, a caveat in here is COVID-19. But what we have seen nowadays is that a lot of these jobs became remote jobs, and they were actually able to be performed remotely because you didn't need to be on a building doing them. You can be connected and do it. Basically, being physically inside the building doing something like this wasn't not necessary anymore. So COVID-19 brought to us a different perspective. And like the Labor Department is saying in here, this is what they think is going to happen. This is where the basic breakdown in here is saying. And he's saying that software engineer is 28% of the jobs coming into the market. Well, all you do with a software engineer is sit down and create programs. You have engineering tools, you have mathematics tools, statistics, computer science, and you build applications from scratch and you build them for people, for your business, for your process. You have different options in here, the computer support, network engineers, architects, computer science, information science, research scientists is 1%. Not too many people involved in that. Systems analyst, 16%. Computer support, 17%. Computer support involves your help desk or the person that comes out from the office to the office or resides in your office that is helping you troubleshoot, is helping you work with the computer, so on and so forth. So if you think about it, this is how these markets are growing. This is also 2020 work. The most important thing to understand about this that we have observed over the years, these jobs were usually done by people or created by people that had a mathematics, science, or computer science application degrees. Nowadays, what we have seen is the trend that people from all different backgrounds are coming and saying, I have the capacity to be doing this. What is being noticed is that a person that is an art major has a lot of creativity available that sometimes is not as rigid as the mathematician. When that happens, it's enabling the person to come in and say, okay, I can create the work and probably it can be done this way. And unbeknown to people that were the true mathematician or the scientist, the art person could design it because they were able to see the same end game, the same output, the same process in a different way. But because of the way software is designed today, the way we write, now we no longer need one single person doing everything. Now you have multiple people doing different aspects of the job. So it's a lot easier to create applications and create software for everything that we're doing. The last type of engineer that you're going to see, and is one that is grown in capacity over exponentially, especially because of COVID-19, is your network engineer. Even though in here it's saying that network and systems engineer is only 11% of the market share of what they expected to grow, I venture to say that as long as they have, as long as we have this issue, we're having to think that we may have to go back to remote learning, remote work. The network engineer is going to be extremely important. The network administrator, the systems administrator. These are the people that are going to keep the systems in place for you to make sure that you can remotely work, that you can do anything that you're doing for the system to stay in place, for your company to stay in place. So yes, these are the points where they say things are going to be. Things have changed quite a bit. We already know that because of COVID, because of the way things are changed. 2 years ago, database administrators were the top of the line. I venture today that anybody that is working the cloud has to know about network administration, web developing, web analysis, network architecture, has to know about software engineering, and on top of it, be a database manager and a database administrator because the market is changing too fast. And it's been said nowadays we expect it to change every 180 days, every 6 months. Remember in your midterm, most of you research the graph that gives you the number of transistors that we can put on a processor. Moore's law. Most of you were able to give me data as of 2020. I also presented to you in our beginning of the classes the fact that the CEO of NVIDIA, which is a company that makes graphic interfaces, graphic cards, is saying that Moore's law is gone because now graphic user interfaces are what is going to control the market. They have the tools to produce better and more capacity on the processing the system. What they're doing is taking away from the processor uh, utility to process capacity and memory to have independent processors built in into the graphic user interfaces. So that is changing the market as it is. I will venture to say this year, if the labor of statistics were to have the same projections back when September comes along, we're going to see a change. We're going to see a lot different spectrum than what we're seeing right now. Of course, we talk about the information systems, the computer operator, the database administrator, the help desk support and analyst, and the trainer. We hear very little about trainers because it's usually a job that is assigned to somebody else that hopefully they know what they're doing and hopefully they are tasked with giving you correct information. Trainers sometimes are the ones who have to write the manuals. That used to be a job on its own, documenting the software, documenting the manual. Now it's done by whoever is training you. The management information side of the house, which is the bigger picture that you see in of everything, is coming in from the CIO, the main boss for information systems, of what they call today functional managers, people that are specific to a site or a function. Your ERP managers, they're more localized because now they're handling specific sections or the whole operating system, the whole enterprise system. Your project manager, you can be in a shop with there's only one project or many projects. Each one of them is run by an individual people. You may be one of those persons handling that project. When that happens, you are in essence participating and making sure that management information systems are in place. And of course, the information security officer. We saw before that there is a need to document access, to restrict access, because you need to control who and what and when and where information can be accessed. You can do it by who or you can do it by role. Managers can see this. Line employees can only see this. Or Sam can see this, Rachel can see this, Nicole can see this, Brittany can see this. Specific sets of information. Never everybody has all the information access. The information security officer is the person in charge of maintaining that information and securing that information. One item that was brought up a while back is certified. And in many cases, people was looking at the option, should I be certified instead of pursuing a degree? Probably it's already crossed your minds. I should have a certification versus having a degree. I'm going to make more money with a certification than I do with a degree. Many companies, their shops, their IT shops, their information security, their information management systems shops are designed so people with certifications are the ones coming in. Because if you think about it, a person in a shop like that is the line person, is the day-to-day person, is the go-to person. When that happens, that person is being pursued more for their certification than their college degree. They have specific information and know-how on how to troubleshoot, manage, or relate to a specific application. So a lot of people saw this as a way to consider what are we doing? Are we working on certifications or are we working on actual college degrees? Well, most people find out, a lot of people is finding out we have to have the college degrees because the companies are asking us to do more, and in order to do more we need more information available to us, more capacity to discern, more capacity to perform the tasks that we need. I'm going to share to you, share screen. Hope you can see this screen, the most valuable 20 most valuable RT certifications. When you go through the presentation, you can go to here and you can start seeing this. And you're going to see that uh, you know a lot of this stuff. You've seen it, you heard about it. You probably yourselves have been looking into things like this. I like this page a lot because it's very up to date, 2020 information. And what these people do is they survey companies throughout the year, every year, all over the nation. They survey people and they figured out position, salary, description, so on and so forth. So if you're ever interested on that, or if you want to complement what you do, you can look into something like this. And he breaks it down. What is the beginning certification? What is the Microsoft certification? What is it that you're looking for? Every shop that you're gonna go is gonna be important to check what do they do. Are they into security? Are they into networkings? Do we need to have Microsoft? For the longest time, the Microsoft solutions developer and the Microsoft certified engineer was the tool to do. Then it changed because technology changes. Certifications, information systems auditor, security manager, systems control, governor and enterprise, cybersecurity nexus, certified ethical hacker. A lot of companies hire people like that to troubleshoot them or to be able to understand what they're looking at. It's important to see that, to see this information, because when you are looking at your jobs, you probably already consider that. You already probably consider certifications for jobs, and perhaps your job requires it. Or if you're looking at another job after you finish your college degree, you find out that you need to have specific tools for the job. So that's what I brought this up with the certifications. This is something that every year changes, and every year is something that you have to be attuned as to what's the market requiring now. The information systems function, where the information should the organization information systems be. Outsourcing and new models. Outsourcing, still you see it today. It was done quite a bit back in the 90s, where companies decided to cut costs, lay off everybody, and bring people to do the jobs for the shops. I remember outsourcing in the military, where it hit hard when we went to the Gulf. We saw firsthand that we couldn't deploy fast enough because we had outsourced our resources. And luckily, we were able to manage fast enough. Some people didn't, but This is a sample of putting all your information formats in one location and not allowing yourself to really think through. Cutting cost is important. It's not the solution to everything. You have to go back and step back and say, okay, what will be the best option do I have? What will be the best organization format that do I have? When you outsource everything, where is the organization information systems at? It's not with you anymore. It's with somebody else. It's with somebody else that says in the dotted line, I agree to provide the information to you when you need it. And we hope that's the case. That's when it's going to happen. So when we created this new outsourcing, new formats, then organizations began changing. Now you have companies that have 100% back to the shop, or companies that still maintain outsourcing food halls. They have the main job of the information system is still in-house, but specific details of the information systems are outsourced. That's being seen a lot when you don't have the money to maintain or to keep up with a lot of the new technologies fast enough, or it's an investment decision. A company doesn't want to buy a server farm to manage data, but they can lease data. That's what happens when you reorganize your company and new models appear. Finally, information system users, the type of users. And think of this not as an individual. Think as a company. Is your company the innovator, the early adopter, the early majority, the late majority, or the lagger? I ask you, are you on Windows 10 or are you still on Windows 7? Better yet, are you still on Windows XP? If you are on XP, you're a lagger. If you are in Windows 10, but you haven't done any of your updates, you are on the late majority. If you are already jumping on the beat and calling Microsoft and tell them that you want to be a beta tester for Windows 11, you want to be an innovator, because as soon as it's out, you want to be testing it. You want to be working with it. Well, it finally came out. First thing you did, you got it. The company has it now. We're early adopters. As a company, it's a very difficult decision to take, because it's not as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to change all my computers and I'm going to be not the 13.5 early adopter, not the 34% early majority. I'm more or less going up this curve. What's stopping me? Cost. The cost of upgrade to new equipment, new licenses. Do I have enough hardware that can support the new operating system? Am I going to have to upgrade? Are my primary systems able to handle what I'm doing in here? Or am I going to have to revamp everything because I can no longer handle that? That question was answered to you by Microsoft when you were a Windows 7 and a Windows XP user. And Microsoft 5 years ago came up with the message saying effective 2021, 2020, we will no longer support Windows 7. And it's now the end of 2020. We're on 2021. All you have in your shop is Windows 7. can you afford to jump to Windows 10? Maybe your systems can handle it working on Windows 10, on Windows 7. Maybe you have good qualified staff that can help you troubleshoot problems in case of a problem. Maybe you have enough redundancy on your systems that allow you to have enough computers running that if one goes down, another one can keep going. So the position that you take on this graph at the top or the bottom of either side, in many cases can be decided by the eagerness of lack of the staff, the person, the owner of the company. But more than anything else is what is the status of the company? Where are we? Can we afford this? How much is this going to cost us? Because Microsoft is not giving you anything for free. Or do I need to change? I got a bunch of Windows XP machines and Windows 7 that I can no longer use. Can I go to Linux operating systems with Open Office on it and a VRM system in place so I have a virtual server system also capable of working for me? Can I do all that? Well, it's not going to cost me anything to do the upgrade because Linux is free. It's not going to cost me anything to do Open Office because it's free. It's not going to cost me anything because the virtual management system is free. Do I have the staff to help me support that kind of changeover? That's where you, as an owner, as an information manager, as an information systems, as a project manager, as a project team leader, as a supervisor, is going to find yourself making decisions and giving answers to your boss. Your boss may not know where he's at. He's going to come back and say, Jessica, I need to know what I have and can I jump? And you're going to do a cost analysis and say, boss, we cannot afford to jump and we don't have anybody that can support us do open source. He said, well, Jessica, you're going on a course, 6 months to learn open source. You're now my person in charge of my migration. So everything, all the processes that we've been talking about now come into place. Because now you have a major change in front of you. Now you have to start thinking on everything that you're doing is going to be affected by one change on systems. There are legacy systems that may be compatible and there is no more change, which is the case of any Microsoft Office system that you're using. When you bring Open Office in line, you will be able to take almost 99% of your documents and absorb them. But your email system is going to change. Your network system is going to change because now you have to configure totally different. And the cost, the human cost is going to be higher for you. Unless you have a bunch of people in the office that you can manage and say, we all can do this. We all like to do it. We're a bunch of geeks in here and a bunch of nerds. We can jump on it and go do it. And let's take one department as a pilot department so we can show that it's possible to be done. Leave HR alone. They can do it themselves like it is because they need to pay us every week. Payroll has to be maintained. But inventory, we can probably jump. Facilities, we can probably jump. Transportation, we can probably jump. You pick a pilot program and you start going. Because you're going to have to start reorganizing everything from the beginning on all the processes that you're doing, on how are you going to adopt new operating systems. Because the minute you go into something like this, that enterprise system that you have in place is going to have to be compatible to this. That means you may be thinking cost effective going into an open source operating system. Or your boss says, we cannot afford to do things like that. I'm taking a loan. We go forward. Whoever is the accountant now is going to have to figure out the cost per person, per process, per computer to do this new changeover based on the new loan. That amortization schedule is going to bite you every day of the week because you have to come up with the money. Your cash flow has to be maintained in order for you to maintain this new system that you have in place or that you want to put in place. So what I brought to you now is we got to a point where we can do something, but we got to tie everything that we've been doing all along into one place just because of this small change or big change that we have to do. So as you can see, everything that we're doing is tied together. Everything has a rule, a process, a format. And you may have to go back to outsource part of the work. You may have to go back and retype and redo all your manuals because now you're changing operating systems and now your processes have to change. That be the case, you take a pilot program and you determine with the project manager, or you are the project manager, you get yourself a Gantt chart and you chart every single step you're going to do for the next 2 years until this process is done. That's how these things are coming into place for you. And that takes us to the end of our system. It's good for today. I hope this was instructional enough for you. The discussion that you have on week 5 is very similar to the one you just saw. You saw Microsoft. Now I'm showing you Google from the point of view of security. Hope you like it. I hope you enjoy it. Give me all the feedback. Give yourself feedback. Remember, if you post once, you haven't completed your assignment. Post once and at least 3 other people. Look at their correspondence. Look at what they're saying. Respond to what they're saying. Have a meaningful conversation. I jump from time to time and I step in and I make comments. If I don't, it's not because I'm ignoring anybody, it's because I'm watching the conversation go and it's important that everybody does it. Start working on your projects. You have a lot, one more week worth of material to have now, 5 weeks worth of material to start building that project. If you owe me material, please get in touch with me. We can work it out. Discussions, I cannot do anything about it. But homework, we can work it out. If you owe me a midterm, please turn it in. I have to have that. There is no negotiation on that. Midterms have to be completed. Other than that, please give me feedback if you need to give me feedback, or if you have to have a question for me, let me know. Send me an email and we go from there. All right, everybody have a good evening, have a good weekend. Stay dry.
Thank you, sir.
Because it's raining a lot in Corpus Christi. Good night, everybody. I'm stopping the recording.